Ravi, this is a question I want to ask you. You've interacted throughout your life with many people of different religions, particularly Muslims. And this question is a good question. What question should I ask a Muslim who is satisfied in his own religion, God, and rituals? His religion brings him to his knees 5 times a day, and he says he's not lacking anything in his soul and life. His values and morals appear many times stronger than Christians he knows. How would a Christian approach someone like that with the gospel?
I think one of the most important questions you can ever ask a Muslim, but most importantly, always try to befriend them first. If you get into a vacuous argument, you will almost never win it unless you have the protracted opportunities back and forth, like Nabil Qureshi's case with a friend of his. They periodically and regularly would get together and pick out the thorny areas of the other person's faith, which you can do with a friend. But just first understand your faith well. It's very important for you to understand what the Christian faith is about, which is very distinctive from the Islamic worldview. Do you know the Christian worldview, the Judeo-Christian worldview, is the only worldview, hear me carefully now, is the only worldview where your salvation is a gift, and that of grace, not of works, lest any man should boast. There's no other worldview that gives you that option. Every pantheistic worldview, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, all of them are karmic. Every birth is a rebirth, every birth is a payment for the previous life. Islam, Muslims, if you ask a Muslim, how do you know you're going to get into paradise? His answer would be, my good deeds will have to outweigh your bad deeds. And you ask him a simple question, do you know if they will? His answer will be, inshallah. It's the wish or the will of God that whether my good deeds will outweigh my bad deeds. Almost every Muslim that I have talked to, without exception, almost every Muslim has come to Christ in one of 2 ways. Either through a dream, where God spoke to them in a dream, or through the love of Christ shown to that Muslim by another believer. I have a very dear friend who went to be a missionary. I won't tell you which country. He was born and raised there, came to this part, came to know the Lord. And his wife was an American gal. He came from the Middle East. And she used to go to church, and he despised it. On Wednesday nights, she would go to a Bible study. They had one car. He would go to pick her up. And he would be waiting outside. He told me the story. He said, and sometimes the Bible study would be going longer, and he'd be breathing, threatening, and slaughter sitting in the car. And the pastor would come out with a tray with some sandwiches or cookies and a cup of coffee or tea and offer it to him while he was waiting. That so touched him. He said, I can tell you this, if the reverse were true waiting outside a mosque, nobody would even think of doing that for you because of the way they would despise your faith. Said that this pastor knew I was waiting and didn't want to come into the church, so he'd bring me a cup of tea or coffee and some sandwiches, cookies. Gradually melted his heart. One thing led to another. Through the study of the Bible and the loving extension of friends, he came to know Christ. But oftentimes I have posed this question to the Muslim. If you don't know whether you're ever going to reach paradise, what is your assurance? He has no assurance. And I say to you, a God who is perfect, a God who is gracious, a God who is merciful and forgiving can offer you that assurance because he paid the ultimate price to give you that assurance in the death of his Son, and that grace and forgiveness is offered to you. One man responded by saying the prodigal son's story doesn't talk about the son going out, looking out for the little guy to bring him back or whatever it was. I said the father left the home in that story, left the home to welcome the son back. I said that is the point of the message of God seeking you out. I said there's no prophet going out either from that story, so your whole worldview gets defeated in the process of raising that question. But God left his home, come to receive you and me. The one thing you must understand is this, and a Muslim who came to Christ in Malaysia said this to me. I was buying a suitcase from him, and I had to pay the price of listening to 30 minutes of his testimony before I bought the suitcase. He said this to me, and my friend standing beside me, he said, if people say that the Quran and the Bible are very similar in their teaching, he said, I just say to or ask if the God of the Quran and the God of the Bible are the same. He said, just look at the two lives. Look at the life of Muhammad and look at the life of Jesus, and you tell me whether it's the same God they are talking about. There's a world of a difference in the life of Jesus in contradistinction to any other claimant to divine or prophetic status. The difference is so stark that the attractiveness of his love is unparalleled anywhere else. I just present the love of Christ to them. At the end of a conversation with Sheikh Hussein in Damascus, Syria, he's the leading Shiite cleric in Syria. We chatted for nearly 2 to 3 hours, the interpreter between us, and he would ask me one question about my faith, I would answer it. I would ask him one question about his faith, he would answer it. Very cordial. He would always address me as Professor Zacharias. And then finally he said, I want to make one more statement. He said, I think it's about time for us Muslims to stop asking if Jesus died on the cross and to start asking why. I said, Sheikh Hussein, do I have permission? Do I have your permission to quote you, sir? He said, you have my permission on that. The pastor who had taken me to the forum said, I was stunned when he made the comment. What prompted that was a repeated response I kept making on the crucifixion, on the death of Christ, on Calvary, why it was so critical to cleanse this heart and to make us acceptable to the Father because we were otherwise unclean. Finally, he said, it's time for us to start asking why. So the certainty of heaven and the gift and grace of Christ would be issues to which you need to be coming back. But be prepared for issues like the Trinity and all the others that they will throw your way. So do your homework.
That's a great story. Great. Thank you so much for that.